Hey everyone, in this episode of Watch Me Work, Troy Miller is going to expose us to infrared photography. This is TWiP. If you've ever seen some of those really cool, surrealistic looking black and white photos floating around, you may have seen infrared photography already, and that's kind of the technique of capturing the infrared part of the electromagnetic spectrum versus the visible light version, and it can produce some ridiculously cool effects. Troy Miller is a big fan of that type of photography, and he's here now to take us through just kind of a glimpse into how you actually do it. Like, how do you get those images, and how do you post-process them? How you doing, Troy?
I'm doing good. I'm ready. This is going to be exciting.
Infrared, man. I'm excited. This is going to be really, really cool. I mean, you and I walked around Sacramento several weeks ago, and you brought your infrared modified camera, and it's fun. It is really fun. Really? Talk about seeing the world in a whole new way. That's how you see the world in a whole new way. Ways that these things in front of our face can't see it, right? It's really cool.
Right. Well, infrared is a completely different spectrum. There is infrared light in regular visual light, but we really don't see a lot of it. But that light is there. And an infrared camera, you're kind of seeing into another dimension. It's really cool.
I love it. Well, let's see into another dimension. Let's see your desktop, and have you get started so I can watch your work.
Yeah, let's do it. So what I wanted to start off with is, how do you get an infrared camera? And that requires a spare camera and a conversion. So I use Spencer's Camera. Great company to convert those. Hang on, my stuff is in my way down here. I have no affiliation with them at all. I just love this. And this website has so much information about infrared, ultraviolet, all kinds of great stuff. So it's really a good resource. Anybody who's looking for something a little bit different. But I wanted to show the conversions that you can see here. Normal color, standardized color that's measured in nanometers,
That's
720s.
Just gorgeous. That looks like you spent hours in Photoshop creating those or something.
Yeah, and the cool thing is depending on how you convert your camera, depends on how it sees the world. And I'm going to show you a bunch of different ones because I have different conversions. I personally have mine converted to 590. And then what I do is I put a filter over it that may filter down to 720 or filter down to 665. And that can change how it sees the light that is available in front of you. And that will have an effect on how you convert it to black and white, because there's two ways to do infrared. One is converting it to black and white. Mm-hmm. And then the other is what I refer to as faux color, where you've taken the infrared colors and you've tweaked them enough so that you kind of get a different look out of them. And I'm going to show some techniques for doing that.
Love it. Let's do it.
Yeah. And then this is the ultra blue. I've never used that. I don't go that extreme, but you can always put filters in front of these things.
You know what? While you're doing that, you know what I think when I see this kind of stuff? I'm like, oh, those would look good in some sort of surrealistic composition. You know, like a composite with different kinds of, like, you have a background that was shot in infrared, and then the foreground that was shot regular, and you kind of blend them together. Yeah, that's. Right? That
wow.
Could be cool. That could be really cool, because you like have a person standing on an alien landscape, and it wouldn't be that hard to do.
Wow. All right. Now you've completely derailed my entire program, because
that's my job.
Now all I can think about is I want to go do that.
That's
all right.
Cool.
I'm done. I'm leaving. I gotta go do.
All right, don't leave yet. We got stuff to see.
Oh man,
we got pixels to punish. Come on.
We do. So speaking of black and white and infrared, I shoot a lot of clouds in infrared, and I use them if I want to do composites. Because the amazing thing is that, as you'll see as we go through this, the blue channel or the ultraviolet light isn't captured very well by the infrared camera, and only the clouds will pop out. Mm-hmm. And that's awesome if you drop that into Photoshop and just go to a lighten layer, a blend mode, and boom, you have clouds. Nice. And you know my struggle with clouds, so.
Yeah. It's in some circles, it's a well-known struggle. Yeah.
Yeah. Ouch. Ouch. elaborated on in previous TWiP conversations.
Yes, you have to go back. Yeah.
So what I'm showing you here is this is the color of that scene, and this is infrared of that scene. So you can see how it changes the way that you see things. So I am using Capture One to edit these. I love the fact that Capture One has the ability to, when you color correct or when you do the color picker, it'll set that all the way to 0. It tries to make that white. Lightroom can't do that. I'm not sure about Luminar, but I think Luminar will take it to 0 as well, which is important because in infrared, you want to separate these two tones. It doesn't look like there's more colors in here, but there is this cyan and a little bit of this magenta back here. And the reason that we want that is when I convert this to black and white, that's just nice and flat. Let's add we'll clip the blacks a little bit. Let's add a little bit of contrast. And that's not bad. But then what I can do, and this is where I love Capture One. You go to Advanced tab, pick the color picker, pick a color that you know was the blue, and look how much color we just grabbed right here. That shows me how much color I grabbed.
Yeah.
And now I can affect just that color, and look at that tree light up.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's magical. Do you know how much work that would have taken back in the day when we were just learning how to do channels and masking and all that stuff?
I know. And then the other effect is I'm going to grab the sky, and as long as you get a nice big wedge of color, it works. So I'm going to bring that down, and that just adds more drama for me to go back to my regular editor and play with some more clipping or play with some more contrast and get it right where I want it. If I pull that up and let's do the highlight, we'll bring that down. So the highlight recovery. So there you go. So that would be an infrared of that scene versus the visual light that we see there. And if you were to convert this to black and white, you could do some fun stuff with it, but you could never get it to look like that.
So the original shot, go back to the color one real quick, Troy.
Mm-hmm.
So the original color shot, that's just a regular shot. Did you take 2 shots and you took one regular and then one in infrared, or?
I shot with 2 different cameras, obviously. And
2 different cameras. Okay, got it. Okay.
Yeah, and we were driving through, and I saw this tree up on the hill, and it was just so cool. So I started shooting in color. There's actually a guy in a tractor off the lower left that I wanted to come into the scene. He just created dust and ruined everything for me.
Of course. That's their job.
Yeah, that's their job. But in infrared is really what I shot. I shoot everything in infrared. As you know, we walked around Old Town Sacramento, and I just carried only my infrared.
Yeah, look at that. That is surrealistic. See,
Yeah.
now if you just had a person running through the field. I'm kidding.
I know.
Someone leaning against a tree reading a book. Yeah.
I know. It's awesome.
No, it's great just like that. I'm just kidding. That's fantastic.
So let me take you to a couple more images, and each one of these images is really going to be a little bit different in how we're going to process it, because it's what light was captured, how much light was there. In infrared, the camera is more sensitive to the infrared light, so you expose naturally for the infrared light, and you underexpose for other light, and that right away can give you that sort of bright, dark dynamic. Mm-hmm. Some of the images, we'll find a couple in here, they need to be coaxed a little bit to get that separation because the light wasn't super strong. Now this is in Kauai. This is Anahola Beach, one of my favorite beaches when I was there. It has these really crazy pylons, which I can't find anything online about what they were, but what a cool place. Yeah. So I could white balance. Let me get back here, get to the white balance tool. So usually what I do is I poke around the image a little bit to see if I can get separation. Now, again, this is why this is different for every image. This one, it's not really defining it like it did with the tree, so I'm not too worried about it. And I'll just simply convert it to black and white. Add some contrast because I like the contrast. Pull that black down. And let's see, that's probably good right there. We can crop that a little bit. Because why not, right?
I see two little dots in there. What are those dots? There's one in the sky and one down in the lower left.
There's like 20,000 dots in this thing.
The sensor noise?
Yeah, it's dust. It's just dust. I mean, you can see it here, here.
Right.
Yeah. And one of the things, this is a converted Sony A7R Mark II. And because that sensor is so close, to the opening, you just get dust in there. And I don't know, infrared, you see dust much more than you would in a regular visual. Excuse me. In visual light or just like a color photograph.
Yeah, it emphasizes those. Yeah, okay.
It does.
But those are easy to knock out of there, like in 2 seconds.
Yeah. So even though I've already converted this image, I like it. It's really good. What I always do is I always grab the color picker, and you can do the same thing in Lightroom. Just go in there, grab a color, and see if you can change it at all. And it's not really changing a whole lot. And that's good. So let me go to this next one here. So this guy, this was KA Beach. Probably would be wet there now, but I was walking through. Oh no, this isn't KA Beach. I don't know where this is. This is in Hawaii somewhere.
But I have no painting, idea. Like at the apex, at the top where the trees meet. It almost looks like watercolor up there. It's so cool.
Well, the cool thing about infrared is the infrared light has a greater ability to penetrate the canopy, the leaves, and that means that the bark and the branches tend to stick out more as a graphic element. So I'm always shooting up. I'm always looking at trees, and I'm always looking towards the sky. And again, this is one of those kind where, what were you going to say?
What does infrared do? How does it react to bodies of water like the ocean? Like, does it render water as dark or lighter, or does it depend?
It's going to be dark.
So that's ocean right there we're looking at, right?
Yeah, and it's going to be dark primarily because it's reflecting the sky, which is ultraviolet light. It's blue light, and also the infrared light is entering the water and it's not coming back. So remember, the camera's sensitive to infrared light, so it's not bouncing back into the sensor. So therefore, it's going to go dark.
Oh, good. Okay, look at that.
Yeah,
physics, easy.
Yeah, I don't understand it all, but I know that's what happens.
Yeah. Very nice.
And this is just another simple conversion. This is nothing too complicated. I'm going to pick a color and I'm going to convert it to black and white. Some of these I'm just showing because they're easy to convert. And if you do get into doing infrared, you're going to find some images are really, really frustrating, and other images are like that. You just, oh, great, look at what I did. I just converted it, and that thing is happy.
Wow, that's crazy.
This one is a little bit different, and I'll show you why. So this is that I don't even know what you call these things. They're not agave, right? They're not a.
I would just say it's some kind of plant in the succulent family.
This is very true. So depending on the kind of filtering that you've done, you will get different colors. Now, you're supposed to white balance your camera on like green, and then you'll get that color that you saw in the samples I showed you from Spencer's website. But because then when you bring it into RAW, you lose that anyway. So that's why I use the color picker. And then you can kind of get that little bit of separation, see the blue or the cyan and some of that dirty magenta in the sky.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to white balance on the sky because it's giving me a lot of blue here to work with, because I want that separation with that infrared. So every image, again, I play with it a little bit different. So then let's convert this to black and white. There we go. I'm going to add a little bit of contrast. There we go. Not too bad. Not too bad. I'm getting closer to where I want to be. So then I'm going to use my color picker. Grab that back. Now see that big fat piece of pie I grabbed right there with color? So now I can pull that down and look how it separates between the foreground.
Oh yeah, look at that.
Which, if we think of this not as infrared, but just continuous tone. So if I want to bring up a highlight or bring down a shadow, so now what I would do is I would go to, say, a level, And if I clip my shadows, they clip even more. They go darker, and I can clip the highlights a little bit and kind of see where that goes, like probably right there. So now I got this really super dramatic image that in color would be completely flat because those are dark green. The wood behind it is, like a dark brown.
Mm-hmm.
The sky is, dirty sky. So
You would not have that level of separation for sure.
no.
Are you doing all of
even.
your conversions in Capture One, or do you do some of them in Lightroom? I know you said Lightroom is limited in terms of being able to get to absolute zero. Right?
Yeah, so I do everything in Capture One, and that was one of the things that attracted me to Capture One was because when you grab the color picker and you pick on something, it will literally take that color to neutral, which means it'll pull out all the red. Lightroom can't do that, and what you have to do in Lightroom is you have to create a custom DNG profile for your camera so you can actually pull all that red out. But Adobe kind of broke that in Lightroom for me because they consider that to be a classic style because now they have all the new styles. And so any presets that I had for infrared in Lightroom are now funky and they don't work and I have to start over. But in Capture One, I don't have that problem. Yeah. So
would you be working in Capture One 100% of the time if you didn't have so much muscle memory built up in Lightroom?
I would. Yeah. I love the incremental control that I have in Capture One that I just don't get in Lightroom. Picking colors and creating layer masks and all kinds of stuff that I'm not necessarily going to do with these, but it's there. And the ability to reset colors to zero, and that's really important.
Love it. Cool.
So so pine trees are wicked cool because the infrared light enters the pine tree and reflects all that infrared light. Now, when you're looking through the camera, so my camera is converted to black and white. So I see this. So I know that even just going contrasty, I'm gonna get a pretty cool image out of this thing, just like that, right? I mean, the gray pine tree, the flat dark green against the road, against the sky. That's not a color photo. That's not going to come out. So just without any manipulation at all, just converting it to black and white is kind of cool. But I know there's two different tones in here. I got the cyan, I got the magenta. So let's see. I can white balance to the sky if I want. See how much more blue that is?
Yeah.
And I just pop around until that went too far. There we go. Convert it. Grab the colors. Now, in Lightroom, if you're doing this, you're going to go into the HSL slider. You're going to grab that little handle that's in there, just in the top left corner of the HSL palette. And then you're going to go to luminosity. And you just grab on a color and drag it up and down. And it'll do kind of the same thing that I'm doing here. So see, I'm going to select somewhere in there in that color. And now I can brighten up the tree a little bit, select in the background. That's not going to go. See, it's not really moving, so I'm not going to see a lot of effect on the background. So then I'll come in, I'll clip the black a little bit. There we go. Gets me a little closer. Be careful over editing because you can create artifacts and weird banding, and if you push it too far. So
yeah,
that's neat. We're gonna get into some crazy stuff here in a minute. So one of the things about infrared is that you can shoot in the middle of the day. And that's usually not something that we want to do. We talk a lot about today. We did a image critique for the TWiP PRO community, and we talked a little bit about direction of light, the quality of light, and that applies to landscapes as well. You want to go outside when the light is the best. Well, I'm in Zion. This is probably 2 or 3 o'clock. Let's see, what time is it? Well, it says it was 10 a.m. So not the most ideal time to go and photograph these rocks. However, because infrared is so much more sensitive, the camera is so much more sensitive to infrared light, the shadows can literally just go black, which is great because it creates contrast.
Yeah.
Like this blue sky that we see in the upper right-hand corner. So infrared's great for just getting out there and shooting in the middle of the day when normally you'd be like back having a sandwich and a beverage and not shooting. So get out there and shoot with your infrared.
Wow.
But so this would be what I would get. Let's see. I don't think it'll white balance very well because there's really not a lot of color. So what we're going to do is we're going to play off the fact that there's a lot of contrast in here. Let's convert that bad boy to black and white. Go back in. Let's add some contrast. Let's clip. Oops, hang on. I'm using curves. I like levels. I don't know why. I never use levels, though, until I got into Capture One because they make you.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and then I'll recover that highlight a little bit. And then I'm going to crush those blacks even more.
Look at that. It's becoming like graphic.
Yeah, and that's the goal for me. Oh, wow, I got the little beach ball there for a second. It scared me. No. So there would be my shot. Super graphic, contrasty. It's just one of the funnest things to work with.
That is so much fun. Now here's a question for you. So
sure.
You looking at your website at spicyjello.com, you like to do a lot of pyrotechnic stuff with flames and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Have you done any crossing of the streams? Like, what if you did something like that where you're capturing high-speed flame but doing it in infrared? Have you ever thought about trying that?
I have, and there wasn't enough infrared light out of the flame to give me a good exposure in the short amount of time that I had.
Oh, okay.
But that is exactly the kind of thinking that will start to pop up as you shoot more infrared. Mm-hmm. You're going to walk outside and you're going to go, I wonder what that flower looks like in infrared. What does a daisy look like backlit in infrared, looking up at trees, pine trees, oak trees? They're all different.
Yeah, it's all kinds of things that are popping off in my head. I'm thinking, like, I know there's probably not based on what you said about shooting flames, but shooting like astrophotography at night, or like I'm wondering what that would look like, or what the aurora borealis or northern lights would look like in infrared. Like, is there infrared light in the aurora borealis? I don't know.
That I don't know. There's no infrared light at night. So astrophotography, there's no infrared light except for what's lit from the moon. The moon is infrared light because it's bouncing off the sun. There's a lot of ultraviolet light at night. So you could go and have an ultraviolet camera converted to ultraviolet.
Huh. Interesting.
Sensitivity. Yeah. And
our eyes are so limited. Why are our eyes so limited? How come I can't see the whole electromagnetic spectrum?
I don't know. Wouldn't that be like the coolest thing ever?
It would probably drive you crazy. That's why.
It would. I wish I had an image in here. I don't have it, and I don't want to take the time to look for it. But during the day, if you go outside and you look outside, and I know this image is probably on my Instagram somewhere, there's a moonrise over this hill. It's actually a moonrise over Hearst Castle. It was shot in the middle of the day with a 400 millimeter lens. And because during the day, the sky is ultraviolet light, which the camera ignores. The moon is reflecting the sun, which is infrared light. Mm-hmm. So when you expose properly for the moon in the landscape, the sky goes black, and the moon that's normally invisible during the day is now visible. Oh. And I chase the moon. I mean, I have a calendar that shows me every full moon, when it rises, when it sets, so I can be somewhere if I can, but not just for nighttime, but also for the day.
Oh, that's killer. That's killer.
Yeah.
Now I have a reason. There's an app for that called the Photographer's Ephemeris. Now I have a reason to use that app because it's great for that. What is this?
Well, this is a winery that we went to. That's the converted job right there.
Wow, look at that.
That's what it looks like out of camera.
It looks like a negative. It looks like a color negative.
Yeah, depending on the camera. So this was with my D800 that I converted. So it was a different spectrum of conversion than was this image, because you notice this image is purple. Mm-hmm. So this had a filter on it to narrow the spectrum of light. I think this was closer to 720 or something. I'm not exactly sure. So I wanted to show difference, because if you go get a camera converted or somebody else does, and then you look at it and go, well, mine's purple, and then Troy said it was red and magenta, and they're all going to be different.
Yeah.
So same process. Let's fix that horizon because crooked horizons drive me nuts. That gets about right there. That should be close. Yeah.
This one is screaming symmetry. Look at that.
Yeah. There we go. What was great is right after this, I had my daughter walk up there. So I have all these photos of her walking up the path.
Oh, yeah. Cool.
Because I see people in all my shots, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So let's grab that sky. Look what it did to the trees and the greenery. Like really strong, powerful separation.
That's alien. Yeah.
Yeah. Now we're going to show you how to use the color here in a couple shots, but convert it to black and white. It goes flat again. But this is where the fun part comes in is I'm going to grab my color picker here, grab the sky. I get a little tiny wedge, so I'm not going to work with the sky. I grab the trees. Oh, I get a nice big fat piece, which means this is going to react, right? So if I bring that up and then I bring everything else down and some contrast in there. There we go.
Wow.
Clip my blacks a little bit. And you can spend a lot of time like picking just the blue channel to clip, which would be your trees, and the red channel to clip would maybe be more of the sky. I mean, you can go crazy. And we are doing this kind of quick, so you can kind of see the difference. But if I go back to that, what would this be? The cyan color that I picked. Now I can readjust that, kind of get that where I want. So you can do all kinds of crazy stuff with it.
You know what? You know this. I mean, I know you know this, but for the folks that are watching this was not even possible back in the film days. I mean, it was possible. I know some people are saying, well, we had infrared film. You had infrared film that was ISO 10 or 12 or 25, right? So there was everything was on a tripod, or you're shooting in bright sunlight in order to get this. Plus, you couldn't see the final result until you processed the film and printed it, right? So,
the workflow for shooting infrared on film was atrocious because you had film that I think it was like 25 ISO. You had to pre-focus the camera. Then you had to screw on a filter that was something like 6, 8, 10 stops.
Right. Yeah.
On top of the slow film. I mean, and then you had to be an almost perfectly bright, sunny day. And then you had to mentally calculate, okay, so I'm at 1/25th of a second at f2.8. Where do I need to be 10 stops longer?
Mm-hmm.
It was awful. And then it was grainy. If you can master it, if there's any film shooters out there, go shoot some infrared film. That is some hard stuff.
That's hard. And it's not cheap. I remember that film was not cheap. So you are, it was, the learning curve was long, and it was expensive in order to get, some people got some outstanding results, but the path from zero to hero is expensive with film.
Oh yeah. It was tough. It was really tough. So I wanted to show you here is a little bit of a, actually, you know what? I'm going to do it on the next image. The next image is even better. So this is at Huntington Library. I want to say this is Huntington Library, out towards LA.
Okay.
Beautiful place to shoot. And another thing is, once you start shooting infrared, anytime there's trees or foliage, or there's clouds in the sky and it's blue, it's like, oh, it's an infrared day. Want to go shoot infrared.
Nice.
If you're thinking about converting a camera to infrared, look at a camera that has an active viewfinder, like I think the Lumix does.
Yes, it does.
Right? The Panasonic, yep. The Sony does. That's why I shoot the Sony stuff. You can convert a standard Canon or Nikon that doesn't have an active viewfinder, but you either have to convert or calibrate a lens to match the body, because infrared focuses at a different wavelength, a different length in the lens. Or you have to shoot through the live viewfinder on the back of the camera, which can be really annoying. So you're walking around looking at the back of your camera, trying to focus. It doesn't focus as well. So cameras with an active viewfinder are the best way to go. They're the magic. They're the magic.
I'd have to agree with that. Yes.
Oh, if you can't see me, I'm shaking my head right now.
Face palm, face palm.
Face palm, yeah. Okay, so again, you see a pattern here. There's a pattern. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab the white balance tool. You can use this in anything. Now in Lightroom, this does not work here. You have to create that custom DNG profile to pull out more red, or you have to do it manually in Photoshop and then bring it back in because it doesn't zero as well. So now what I'm going to do, let's add a little bit of contrast to this. I'm already here. Yeah, contrast. I like contrast.
Look at that.
There we go. Let's do that. So now what we're going to do, let's hope nothing crashes. We're going to take this into Photoshop. And then the magic. All right. Yay, nothing crashed. You can see everything, I'm hoping. So now what we're going to do is we are going to swap the colors. And the way that you do that is you go into Channel Mixer. Let me move this. Come on, behave. All right. So we're going to take the red channel to 0, the blue channel to 100. You could stop there if you like.
Yeah.
We're going to take the blue channel to 0 and the red channel to 100. And there you go. And that is, we flipped the red and the blue channel. And the reason that I like this and the reason that it works for me is because the orange to me is a natural color. Mm-hmm. Right. It's a natural, it's a color that exists in nature. This, not so much.
Maybe on Pandora. Yeah, not here.
Yeah. But this is really cool. So if I save that, yeah, we'll save that. You can include all the layers. So you can get really funky with how you tweak those layers. So sometimes if you see or those colors. So if you see an image, there's some on Spencer's website. They're all over the internet where you see like a bright blue sky and a yellow tree. That is how they did it. They just flip those things.
That's killer. No, yeah. Hey, all pixels are fair game, right? So whatever you want to do.
I totally agree. Yeah, absolutely. This image right here is another really good one that we're gonna flip. And I'll show you why this one works really good. Let me just grab, yeah, that's a good one right there. Gonna go to black and white. Tune that. Let's bring those blacks in a little bit. All right, so that would be a really good black and white. We can pull down these colors in the background here a little bit, like what we've already done a couple of. Let's see, I get a good fat piece now. Let's do this one. Now there's really not a lot. There we go. There we go. Nice and dramatic. So that's the traditional process that you would want to step through to make that black and white. But what we want to do with this one is we want to flip it. We're going to flip it. Yeah, that'll be good. So now bring it back into Photoshop. And 3 minutes ago, I showed you how to do this. Where's my... Oh.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I don't know. That's kind of weird, isn't it?
That is freaky.
Let's try it again. How do you not recognize? Let's try it as a JPEG. Maybe it'll go faster too. There we go. So I saved that swap color as an action.
Oh, so you can just apply it whenever you want to apply it.
Yep. In, out. It just keeps flipping those two colors. But I love that blue sky because now again, in this situation, the blue sky is a real color. Skies are blue. Yep. So it's even more weird because the color of the tree is off, but the sky turned blue. So you can really play with these things a lot. And I just have a huge library of like flip. It actually have a keyword that I put in. It's called IR_RB flipped. And so I can go in and do a search for all the colors that I've flipped because I just think it looks really, really cool.
That is so cool.
Let me reset that.
That like
So this
changes
one
the whole thing for you. Like just like seeing locations that would ordinarily be relatively mediocre and shooting them with in infrared and creating instant art is just insane.
It is. Now notice this one compared to the previous one, I left more blue in the tree. So when it flipped, it went orange and the sky didn't go as blue. So you're creating this sort of really alien landscape,
Yeah.
which just it just allows you to be more creative. Do whatever cool thing you want to do with this.
I love that.
Yeah. Look at those. I mean, look at the different looks that we can get out of this one tree.
So let's talk costs, Troy. So the Capture 111 is how much? Roughly?
350, 399, something like that.
And that's one time. That's not a subscription or anything, right?
Yeah, there is a subscription. I think it's $15 a month, and you can load it on 2 or 3 machines. One route gives you 2, the other route gives you 3,
Okay.
unless you shoot with a Sony, because you get a free limited version for Sony files.
Oh.
Yeah, and then if you want to upgrade to the full version, I want to say it's $90, $99.
Huh.
So if you're a Sony shooter, they give you a lot of love.
And then to convert your camera to infrared, how much are we looking at?
300 mid-range, somewhere in there. I mean, it could be slightly less, slightly more, depending on the camera.
Okay.
So, and if I remember correctly, you can unconvert it. So let's say you convert a camera and you decide I want to sell it someday and nobody wants the infrared or whatever. You can take the conversion out because it's just a filter they put over the sensor.
Yeah. Interesting. So it's reversible, unlike a vasectomy, right?
Yeah. So I hear.
Well, I hear some are. I don't know. That is really cool. Okay, cool. So around $600, you can get into this using this workflow. And you need obviously a camera that is not your primary camera, because it's not like you can load in infrared on one of your custom settings and flip to it, right? You need a camera that's going to be infrared for the rest of its days for the most part.
Right. And I know that Spencer's actually sells cameras that are pre-converted. So there's a small Sony camera. I don't remember what it's called, but it's got a fixed lens on it and everything. You can get one of those converted to infrared. Just whatever camera's going to get you down the road. Yeah.
Cool.
So I wanted to show you this because I shot this in Vegas when we were there for WPPI. And this is not something that light is emitting from. It's not alive. There's none of that infrared glow. But what's going on here is because the sculpture is lit by the sunlight, the camera again is going to be more sensitive, where the sky behind it is not. And it just immediately, as a conversion, the foreground, the highlights are going to be brighter than if you were to have shot this just straight in color. Mm-hmm. So even just like simple things, you're going to be able to get more dramatic, elements out of. If you were to have shot this in color, the background, the sky would have been brighter because the camera would pick up that blue tone.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm constantly walking around looking up at whatever cool elements are up there and trying to create some really cool abstracts.
That might constantly walking around looking up might get you detained in some areas. I'm just saying.
It's entirely possible.
And talking to yourself.
Yeah, like, I don't know. Frederick said I should come here.
Like, sir, can you please just come with me?
Yeah. But this is in Old Town Sacramento. We were walking around in one of the buildings there. You look up. I know the sky is going to go black really easily, and I love that graphical element of the building. Yeah. So it doesn't always have to be things that are alive, right? Like it doesn't have to be grass or trees or anything like that. Just understanding how it worked.
Yeah. How long did it take you to get accustomed to shooting in infrared?
A 3-week trip up the coast to Oregon and Washington.
Oh, wow. That's when you got indoctrinated into the world of the invisible spectrum?
I did. And you know what I did is we took a road trip, and I took all my gear, as I always do. And I decided that I loved the infrared as I was shooting. And I literally shot the entire trip in infrared. I shot no color.
Wow.
So 3 weeks on the road, everywhere we went, all black and white. The only color we have is the stuff that my daughter took.
Wow. And this shot we're looking at right now, I know exactly where this is. This is Sacramento, right?
Yeah, yeah. So the reason that I wanted to show this one was because this one's really hard to get to where I want it to be, mostly because let me just create a virtual copy, or a variant, as Capture One calls it. It's kind of flat. You know, you don't have that really super dramatic separation, but I know that there's more infrared light coming out of that tree than there is coming off of these walls.
Yeah.
And this was in shade, open sky, but it was in shade, not even direct sunlight.
Mm-hmm. Because there's another building right there blocking the sun, right?
Yeah. So this is one of those kind of images where I really have to kind of fight for it, kind of figure out, you know, where's my best separation, how much I can manipulate this without going too far. So I think that gives me good separation between what would be an infrared lit subject, the tree, and the background, which is the nasty orange back there. So let's see if this works. See how flat that went?
Yep.
So my hope is, yeah, see, nice big meaty grab right there. Yeah, that's what I want.
Oh, that's cool. You know what this is making me want to do, Troy? This is making me want to jump in the car and run over to Home Depot and go to their nursery and buy a bunch of little plants and set up some little macro scenes to shoot in infrared to see what I get. That would be really
you just walk around Home Depot. Don't even bring them home.
Oh yeah, right. Just steal them. Yeah, just steal the pixels right there. Why do you got to bring them home?
Yeah. No, you don't have to. I just think that it's really great because you need to. It's just a different way of seeing light. That's the most important thing.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah, I think that's. I mean, I've got others, but really they don't edit any different. So those were just there for extras.
Well, that's the flow. I mean, that's the purpose, is to get people inspired about trying something new, and I'm 100% inspired to try this.
Oh, I love it. I mean, I wish I had glasses that could see in infrared. I just wear them all the time, walk around.
Right. Yeah, Jody LaForge from Star Trek. Yeah, he had the goggles, could see everything.
Yeah, that would be.
Our robot overlords will be able to see everything, right? So when those guys show up, they'll be able to see everything. As limited meat bags won't be able to only see the visible light spectrum.
All right, I'm going to stop my screen sharing.
So, what was the name of the site that you mentioned that had the place where you can go to get the conversions done again?
Oh, it is Spencer's Camera.
Okay, Spencer's Camera, and I'll link to them in the blog post for this. So Spencer's Camera,
yeah,
and it's around $600. You said around $300 to get it done.
I think so. So. I think it was like $325. Yeah, it's spencerscamera.com. Go check it out. There is so much cool information on here, from infrared, ultraviolet. The guy does workshops. I mean, like I said, I had no affiliation with him at all, but always been a super helpful guy, and the conversions that he does are spectacular, and he's really helpful. So he'll guide you, and he's a photographer himself. So it's nice talking to somebody who's out doing workshops, and he goes, "Oh, I'll call you back later because I got a workshop." So he's out shooting, which is great because he fully understands what it is that you want to do.
Deal, yeah. Maybe I'll try to get him to come on. It would be good to get his perspective on infrared, right?
That would be great.
And get into the nitty gritty of what they actually do inside the camera, and because I have a ton of like science questions. Okay, if it can see infrared, can it see the other wavelengths of light?
You can. I mean, if you go on his site and you look, there is astro conversions where they're converting, and I'm looking at it right now, is they're converting images, cameras to pick up like really wide UV. Nice. So it's like going out and shooting the Milky Way would just be insanely.
It would be insane, yeah.
I just don't have another body.
You might see stuff that you don't want to see. You're like, okay, I'm ready to take photos. You look up and there's these 12 giant saucers up there. You're like, wait, I really didn't want to see that.
Yeah, yeah. Our sci-fi nerd is coming out big time.
Hey, it doesn't come out. It's always out. So.
Right. It's always out.
I'm an unapologetic nerd. I'm fine with it.
Yeah. I would love to have a UV converted camera. I think that would just be exquisite because I'm a night owl anyway, so going out and shooting night stuff would be fantastic. But
love it. Cool, man. Do you have any of these shots? The shots. I mean, we'll put some in the post for the episode. But do you have any posted in a gallery somewhere that people could go kind of thumb through your infrared shots?
Infrared specifically, I think I probably have some stuff on spicyjello.com, and then just on Spicy Jello, my Instagram. They're all splattered in there.
Okay.
I try to post different stuff, but there's definitely some infrared stuff in there.
Fantastic.
Yeah. I don't have an infrared specific gallery, but now you make me want one.
You probably should. I mean, come on. Yeah. Cool, man. All right. Well, thank you. I appreciate this. This is inspiring. Yeah. As always, you did a fantastic job. I love it. Yeah. Every time we do one of these and you dive into Capture One, I'm like, oh, Capture One.
Yeah. I am this close to moving my wedding workflow into Capture One.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a whole different show. We should do a show where we talk about post-processing options and Capture One and Lightroom and Photoshop and Luminar and all these other players. And even there's a ton of iOS tablet-based apps that you can get into that are doing professional level work now, and they're now viable for real work, so.
Well, you mentioned Luminar. Luminar is one of my new favorite tools that I'm using. I was introduced to it at WPPI, and it's not expensive. So I'm like, okay, I'll play with it. And I'm using it as a plugin to Capture One and Lightroom and everything else. And it just has a level of control that makes Photoshop less necessary.
Yeah.
And I dig that because then I'm working on raw files all the time, dropping in layers, dropping in textures, dropping in frames, all on a raw file, which, I love that stuff. So it's fun to play with.
Love it. Well, cool, man. Well, stuff. Thank you for coming on again. I appreciate your time and showing me this stuff. And we'll see you in the next one, right?
Yes, absolutely. Look forward to it.
All right, man. Take care.
All right, my friend.
Peace. This is TWiP.